Hello there. I'm Gerald Gangaram, Vice President of the Civic Leadership Development at the Bill of Rights Institute. Today, I'm joined by a great man, Curt Cronin. He's the co-founder and managing partner of the Broadway Strategic Return Fund, and more importantly, he has had a 19-year career as a Navy SEAL. This man has deployed 13 times. He has over 4 years that he spent abroad. Curt, I'm so glad that you can join me today.
It's an absolute honor and privilege to be here. Thank you.
Brother, you've spent a lot of time in the military. You swore an oath to our country, really to the Constitution. And in that time, I want to know, what's something that you would like to share with our audience about your time in the military, about how it's impacted your view of the roles and responsibilities of citizenship?
I would say the most important piece was it was an honor and privilege to serve. This nation was founded upon the principles of service, and the opportunity to get to serve. To me, the most important thing to state to the citizenry is thank you for making it worth it. The only reason to give that sacrifice and to give that level of dedication is because the principles that this nation is founded upon and the very essence of being able to set others free and stand the line between those who would do harm and those who would defend freedom is the greatest honor and privilege of all time. And the core essence of that I think would be useful to express was the moment that the rotors spin up in the desert. So for us, we were getting on these MH-47 helicopters, and so you got this huge kind of helicopter you're walking into the back of, and it has dual rotors. So these two rotors start to spin up at night, and when they spin up, you've got this little ring of static electricity that starts as the sand hits the outside of the rotor. So imagine you're completely blacked out and you're completely adrenalized, and you've got these two rings of lightning that are on board the helicopter, and you sit down, you're kind of across from it, that are just like you and I are right now. And so you sit down, and of course, the most critical part of getting prepared for the mission is you look across the helicopter and you've got your night vision on. So you kind of pick it up, and then you're about 45 degrees off so I can make eye contact and that quick head nod. And that head nod means my life and yours and mine. And that is the essence of what allows that individual to become a crucial part of the team, because that really sets the field where now everybody can now be wholly invested. So that team component of each person's superpower now becomes the strength of the team and compensates for each of our weaknesses. And that's what allowed, in my case, Navy SEALs to do superhuman things with very average human being in full surrender to each other. And that's the thing I would want for each person viewing is you can create that any moment by being in full service to another, where it allows you to become actually more yourself than you've ever been. And it allows you to fully engage everyone around you.
Curt, that's amazing. And rightly so, SEALs have a reputation for being superhuman. And obviously, you've had very profound moments in your career leading to high stakes environment challenges that you had to overcome in that team dynamic, like you're saying. And even that brief story that you shared reminds me of part of our curriculum that highlights Eisenhower's decisions with regards to D-Day, about how trust and taking responsibility for decisions is paramount. Why is it so important for leaders to build trust with those that they lead? And is there any advice you can give us on how to build that trust?
I'd be careful giving advice, because trust is the most exciting and delicate, epic part of being human, right? Being connected to another. To build that trust means my life and yours and your mine, to be able to now have a bond, right? Really, trust is the bond that holds us all together, and relationships are the essence of life. And so that really drives the deepest connection, that sense of oneness that's so crucial. And so why it's important is because there will be moments where any of us have the information that's required for the team to survive, right? That none of us have, all of the information at the time as we were walking toward a target. You can imagine the dynamic subordination of the helicopter pilots are completely in charge until the moment that we land. And then the reconnaissance team, who's most qualified to lead us to the target, now they take over. And because the pilots are not going to be good on the ground and none with the reconnaissance team in the air. And then when you get within 100 meters of the target, all of a sudden the breachers come up because they're the most qualified to get the door open. And then the moment the doors open, the assaulters come in. And so you can imagine anytime any one of us doesn't do what's ours to do, everybody dies. And at the same time, anytime we hold the ring too long, and when it's our moment has passed and it's time to hand it to someone else, then also complete failure of the team. And so the most crucial part of trust is being able to, that interdependence. Like all 5 of my kids are in the process of going dependent to independent. And so in human nature is, hey, I want to be independent because it feels like it's less risky. And it is at a small level, but the least risk is if I'm interdependent, now I get to fully engage others. I mean, I think the most blatant example of that was we were on an operation, out in the middle of nowhere where it wasn't a declared theater of combat. So because of that, that meant we had one aircraft overhead, but no munitions. And so really no support coming from anywhere else. And so we literally just had 3 vehicles that were driving 15 kilometers out into the middle of nowhere to try and go after what we viewed as one of the greatest threats to America. And so we started to drive out, and we were supposed to take Humvees, and all of a sudden we weren't taking Humvees. Now all of a sudden we're taking Suburbans. And so you see those little deviations in, okay, but I still really want to go. And then we had our host nation counterparts that said, well, we want to drive one of the cars. And so they want to drive one of the cars. And so we said, no problem. So then that means now they're driving the Gen 1 night vision. If you remember the old ones with the hexagon, right? Which I would have never wanted to fly a helicopter of yours on those. And so we're on Gen 4, they're on Gen 1, but said, I really want to go do this operation. And then we got about 15 of the 18 kilometers out there, and all of a sudden I got stop. And so at that moment, what had happened is, as you could predict, on faulty equipment, I made compromises in the process. And so now all of a sudden our host nation counterpart had high centered the vehicle. And now there we are, 15 kilometers from anywhere. And all of a sudden we got a overhead radio call that said, hey, there's people moving in. You've got the tribes moving in, and they're coming at a high rate of speed. You've got 10 minutes. And so I've got one American on recce watching everything. I've got one communicating to the aircraft and one trying to dig out this vehicle. And so now I realize, oh, wow, this group that I thought was a team was actually, in the equivalent in this country was like Friday night. So they give me all new guys. And so my team was actually a collection of individuals. And so you can see I've continued to deviate from my trust by continuing to evolve that standard. And now we're in a place where the tribal, the enemy that's coming toward us, they then jumped in, and they jumped out of their vehicles, and they did a perfect L-shaped ambush. So as you know, like that's what I'm supposed to do for a living. And now they're doing it to me. And so they jumped out, and they're now doing what we call leapfrog movement. That leapfrog means 2 people are on the ground, 2 people are moving. And so it's a great kind of a sophisticated cover and movement. And so they're demonstrating complete dominance and great tactical prowess, while at the same time I'm sitting with a high centered vehicle in the middle of nowhere with a gaggle of individuals smoking cigarettes. So fundamentally lighting off, if I assume they have thermal imagers, like lighting off our location with a flare. And so we continue to move down that place, and all of a sudden I hear that metal grate that you'll never forgive. You hear it in combat, where that is my sniper coming off safe and he's getting ready to engage. Now we'll win this firefight, but we won't win the next 100 on the way to the border or the way to get back. And so I just held on to his calf very lightly so as to not startle him. I said, hey, just hold for a second. And in doing so, he kind of looked at me and pulled his eye out, and hey, they're coming, right? Like, because they were using AK, so they now moved from 300 meters to 100 meters. Now they're getting inside their effective range. We're at 50 meters. And so the net for me was I didn't have a solution that resulted in a good outcome. And so he put all of his trust in me to say, okay, I'm going to allow you, even though I don't understand it, I'm going to hold, and we're going to let that space for grace unfold. And so in within 75 meters, in within 50 meters, and all of a sudden there's yelling back and forth between my gaggle smoking cigarettes and the approaching force. And all of a sudden there's yelling back and forth, and then they run together and hug each other, and ask my interpreter what happened. He goes, my cousin. And so you can imagine better lucky than good. Like, the only reason we survived that is we were able to cultivate enough trust in our relationship that he was able to not do the thing that seemed most logical at the time, and said, hey, I'm going to trust in the field we've created. I'm going to trust for something to unfold that's infinitely greater than anything we could have done in any other way. And so that can't be built in crisis. Trust is something that must be built ahead of crisis. And so the most critical part of any relationship is, how do we build that trust so that the moment it's required, we have enough bond to hold?
Wow. Curt, I really appreciate you sharing that. It reminds us that not every plan survives that first contact, right? But there are things that we can do to definitely set ourselves up for when we will have to deviate.
And you heard all the trust that I deviate from, because I came off of our standards. My desire to get it done, I was imperfect. But even in that imperfection, there was enough of a bond to hold. And that's why we're all going to make mistakes. Like, the mission is, how do we, the absence of conflict is actually not the strength of relationships. It's the absence of repair. It's, can we continue to repair every single time we make it stronger. Every time we go weightlift in the room, we're tearing the muscle down so that it can repair. And so the strength of the repair, the strength of those conversations that we all have every single day is what really creates those bonds that allows us, if our words and our actions match, we'll be able to hold.
I mean, that kind of is the answer to how to deal with fear in those same situations as well, right? It's all of that trust that you have in the person to your left and right.
Unequivocally. And as a people pleaser, a recovering people pleaser, ideally, my mission is always, okay, it feels like in the moment, hey, I don't want to have a difficult conversation with someone because I don't want to hurt their feelings. I want to be in rapport with them. And so how I've revamped that for myself is I don't want this person to not become the best Navy SEAL in the civilian world, the best CEO, the best CMO, the best CTO, whatever it is they want to become. I don't want them to not get there in 30 years because I didn't have the courage to have that conversation. And so that's how I re-rigged myself is I now love difficult conversations because if I can get into the conversation, it might risk your relationship to me, but that's not the most important thing. I want you to make sure that your relationship with yourself, I don't want you to have a flat spot that I didn't tell you about, which doesn't allow you to manifest your destiny. And so to me, that truth and that true intent, it's been amazing. And people always know, they won't tell you whether, if are you being truly authentic with me? Are you telling me everything or are you holding back? And so the depth of relationship is, hey, I'm willing to risk everything for you and on your behalf so that we can be in the deepest relationship.
Always promoting growth, brother. Here's a question for you, man. Not everyone gets the opportunity to serve in your way, not just as a Navy SEAL, but especially not everyone will join the military, and that's okay. How would you encourage young people to serve, to make their communities stronger?
Oh, that's easy. I think service is universal. I love Buckminster Fuller. I talked about if we can help humanity to go from passengers on planet Earth to crew members on planet Earth, everything changes. And so, I think the greatest difficulty of our time is I see a lot of people think, I'd like to do something, seems like a ton is required and I can't do it all, therefore I'm not going to do anything, right? And that's the model where humanity doesn't make it. The model where we make it is we say, I don't know what to do on the greatest level, but I know I can help my neighbor, I can help my friend, I can help my brother, sister. I can now show up every single day. And that's where I love that concept of the Thor's hammer, right? What's mine to do or what's not mine to do, right? If it's mine to do, it's infinite light. Whatever you feel called to do. The fascinating thing as humans, if we think, well, there's billions of people on this planet. If I feel called to do this, why me? And the real inversion of that I would ask everyone here is, why not me? Right? If I feel called to do this, then how do I do what's mine to do so that everyone else can do what's theirs to do? And that's the essence of team humanity. That's how we can really change the game collectively, because now we get to create according to what's ours and we get to allow others to be who they're designed to be. And so I think the first phase of our life is often that pattern recognition. How do we embed into a culture? And the second part is, how do we create? What are we going to create that's our unique fingerprint that we can add to the rest of humanity, to add to that unbelievable mosaic that we're joining?
You're so full of knowledge, my friend, and I appreciate you taking some of your time to impart that with us. I want to give you the opportunity, if you have any parting words that you'd like to leave our teachers and students with.
I think just the Nelson Mandela quote, be the change you want to see in the world, be the change you want to see. Like, each of us have infinite capacity within ourselves. And the awesome piece is we're always setting an example, whether it's a good example or a bad example, that's our choice, but we're always setting an example. And so each of us courageously doing the thing that feels, and that, in my experience, is the closer it is to our core, to our calling, the more scary it becomes. Like, the more it's, can I really do this? Can I do this thing that's so important to me? And so the more we can each take those baby steps every single day towards, here's what's my calling, here's what's powerful for me, the more that somebody else goes, oh, well, Gerald's doing the thing, so I'm going to do the thing. And that allows all of us to now compound forward. And so, like, never underestimate that power of that snowball rolling down the hill. And so be the change you wish to see in the world.
Curt, always a pleasure. On behalf of myself and the Bill of Rights Institute, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you to all of you and all you're doing.